Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we take, stacks of sources, articles, corporate filings, research, and we try to pull out everything you need to know to get you instantly up to speed.
And today, we are deep diving into a company that I think most of us sort of see as just part of the background noise of American retail.
Right.
But its history is really a masterclass in strategic survival. We're talking about Best Buy.
It's so true. It's really easy to just dismiss them as, a relic of that big box store era, a company that's constantly like teetering on the edge of the so-called retail apocalypse.
Exactly. But if you actually dig into the sources, you look at the, nearly 6 decades of their existence.
Almost.
It's this fascinating and I'd say often aggressive story. It's defined by these existential threats and these huge business model pivots that were, for their time, truly radical.
Often years ahead of their competitors, which is the surprising part.
Yeah, years.
So our mission today is to really get beyond that surface level, the blue shirts and the yellow taglines. We want to give you a really thorough, synthesized understanding of this American multinational consumer electronics giant.
And we really want to focus on those aha moments,
Exactly. The surprising origins, those counterintuitive retail shifts, the big acquisitions, and, I think crucially, the recent controversies that show how even a tech retailer just can't escape the complexities of the modern world.
So, to sort of set the stage, let's just look at the core facts. Because the scale here it's just huge. Best Buy was founded on August 22, 1966, in St. Paul, Minnesota.
But, and this is the first surprise for a lot of people, it was not called Best Buy.
Not at all. It began its life as Sound of Music.
Sound of Music.
And it specialized exclusively in high-fidelity stereos, which was a very, very niche market back then.
So the founders were Richard M. Schultz and James Wheeler, but really it seems like Schultz quickly became the driving force behind it all.
Oh, almost the singular force, yeah. I mean, the level of commitment was immediate and pretty intense. Our sources note he financed that very first store by tapping into his personal savings and, critically,
The second mortgage
on his family home.
Wow.
That kind of risk, it just suggests he wasn't planning on running a small local stereo shop for very long.
No, you don't take out a second mortgage for a hobby. You're going for something big.
And that massive initial bet, it paid off fast enough to encourage him to keep going. In its very first year, Sound of Music earned $1 million in revenue.
$1 million in the late 60s from one stereo shop.
It's significant money, and it turned a profit of about $58,000. So by 1969, Schultz bought out his initial partner, and the business just slowly but surely expanded across Minnesota.
Okay, so let's fast forward to today just to frame this.
Yeah.
The scale of that initial risk is almost impossible to comprehend now.
Based on 2025 financials, the company pulls in about $41.5 billion in revenue a year?
$41.5 billion.
Right.
And they employ roughly 85,000 people. They're still a component of the S&P 500.
And they operate today primarily in the U.S. and Canada, but that current footprint, it's the result of this long, really complex, and I would say often painful international history.
Right. With failed ventures in China, Mexico, major parts of Europe.
All of which we have to unpack.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's unpack this. Starting with the literal disaster that didn't just hurt the company. It actually created the entire foundation for the retail brand we know today.
That's the perfect place to start, because the sort of foundational mythology of Best Buy lies in what our sources call its accidental birth. This is the period from 1966 to 1983.
So, as you said, they started as Sound of Music. They were a successful regional chain specializing in audio equipment. By 78, they have 9 stores across Minnesota.
And it's a very niche business. It's focused on high-touch sales to a pretty educated, mostly male audiophile customer.
Right, not a mass-market business at all.
No. And then everything changed in 1981, specifically at their Roseville location.
Which was their biggest and most profitable store at the time.
The biggest. And it gets hit by a major tornado.
A literal catastrophic force of nature.
Yeah, the sources, they describe it vividly. The store's roof was just sheared clean off. The entire showroom, where they displayed all the polished, expensive stereo gear, completely destroyed.
But in this amazing twist of fate, the inventory in the back, in the storeroom, was mostly intact.
Left largely intact, maybe a little damaged, but sellable. So Schultz finds himself in this just disastrous situation. He has a store that can't operate, massive damaged inventory, mounting losses every single day.
His reaction is just It's pure retail jujitsu.
Yeah.
Instead of just, filing an insurance claim and quietly liquidating the stock.
Which is what most people would do.
Absolutely. He froze the entire remainder of his marketing budget, which had to have been a huge risk on its own,
Yeah.
into advertising a 4-day tornado sale.
And the ads were brazen. I mean, they promised the best buys on everything, from slightly scratched speakers to just excess stock. They really leaned into the disaster, the discount, the urgency.
This was not traditional high-fidelity retail. This was a fire sale.
It was a parking lot sale, essentially.
And the outcome, it just fundamentally redefines his entire view of consumer behavior. That 4-day event generated more revenue than the store typically made in an entire month.
I mean, just think about that. In 4 frantic, chaotic days, they surpassed 30 days of normal, careful operations.
The monumental discovery for Schultz.
Yeah.
It proved that customers, if you give them the right price and a sense of urgency, they cared more about high-volume transactions and just getting their hands on the product
Right.
than they did about the traditional, low-volume, high-margin, polished retail experience that Sound of Music had been offering.
It's this idea that a slightly damaged store could generate extraordinary revenue. It validated this new mass market, high volume, low price strategy. It was a light bulb moment.
And that successful chaos led directly to the rebrand. In 1983, Sound of Music, which by then had 7 stores and about $10 million in sales, formally became Best Buy Company, Inc.
Taking its name directly from the promise they made in those tornado ads.
Exactly.
And the change wasn't just, a name shift. It was a fundamental strategic pivot. They diversified immediately, moving aggressively beyond high-fidelity stereos and that core customer base of, 15 to 18-year-old males.
So what did they add?
VCRs, which were a rapidly growing technology at the time, and large home appliances. They were aiming for a much broader family-oriented audience.
And they took the lesson of the tornado sale and just institutionalized it. They rolled out what they called the Superstore model.
The very first Best Buy Superstore opened in Burnsville, Minnesota, and it was designed specifically to implement that high-volume, low-price strategy.
The validation was instant and frankly shocking. Our sources say that in its very first year, the Burnsville Superstore outperformed all other existing Best Buy locations combined.
All of them combined.
That's the definitive proof, isn't it? The future of electronics retail wasn't in these little niche specialty stores. It was in these large format, efficient superstores that offered breadth and, most importantly, competitive pricing.
And that success, of course, it provided the fuel for a huge expansion. The company went public in 1985. They were listed on the NYSE in 1987.
But there's a fantastic anecdote from 1988 that just shows how underestimated they were by all the established players.
They were caught in this brutal price and location war with some major regional players, right?
Yeah, notably a Detroit-based company called Highland Superstores. So Schultz, in a moment of real financial pressure, actually tried to sell Best Buy to the then dominant national electronics giant Circuit City.
And he offered it for $30 million.
$30 million. And Circuit City rejected the offer.
Their rationale was just incredible arrogance. They dismissed Best Buy as totally insignificant. They basically claimed they could just open their own store in Minneapolis and, their words, blow them away if they really wanted to compete.
They just failed to see the efficiency in the new model that Best Buy was building.
And that arrogance, it proved to be one of the greatest miscalculations in 20th century retail, because Best Buy was about to execute another strategic pivot that would dismantle the very core competitive advantage of its rivals.
The commission-based sales model.
The commission-based sales model.
Okay, here's where it gets really, really interesting. Let's transition into section 2. Reinventing the shopping experience. This covers the pivotal years from 1988 to 2009.
Right. So if the tornado sale gave them their pricing model, this era gave them their unique, sustainable retail identity.
And the defining move came in 1988 with something called Concept 2.
This was a truly radical overhaul of the physical store environment. They moved away from that sort of dimly lit, messy warehouse look, and they shifted to brighter, more fashionable fixtures. And they took that tornado sale lesson to heart again. They moved virtually all of their stock onto the sales floor.
Or minimize the need for those large, costly back rooms.
Exactly. And crucially, they focused heavily on self-help. They peppered the floor with product information sheets, displays. They recognized that a lot of customers just wanted to browse without being immediately accosted by a salesperson.
But the most disruptive change, the one that truly shook the industry and terrified their competitors,
was the elimination of commissioned salespeople.
They just got rid of them. in favor of salaried staff.
It was a huge risk. I mean, in the late 80s, consumer electronics retail was defined by high-pressure commission sales. That was how employees made their living and how stores pushed their high-margin items.
So when Best Buy eliminated commissions, what was the internal justification? I mean, how did they sell that?
It was entirely customer-centric. It goes back to the tornado sale again. The justification was simple. Commissioned salespeople create adversarial shopping experiences.
Right. You walk in and you immediately have your guard up.
Exactly. They scare off browsing customers, they create high employee turnover, and they steer buyers toward the product that earns the salesperson the biggest cut, not necessarily the product the customer actually needs.
So by eliminating commission, Best Buy was aiming to create this relaxed, low-pressure environment built on trust.
Yeah, but the immediate fallout must have been absolutely terrifying for management. Our sources detail the turmoil. The suppliers were furious.
Because they relied on those salespeople to push their specific products.
Their specific high-margin products, exactly. Companies like Maytag, Whirlpool, even a giant like Sony. They initially boycotted Best Buy. They refused to sell their goods through the chain.
They genuinely believed that without the financial incentive of a commission, their products would just sit on the shelf gathering dust.
And yet they all came back.
Why?
Because the non-commissioned, high-volume model just worked. Customer trust translated into more traffic and higher overall sales volume. Best Buy became too large and too successful for major brands to ignore.
The numbers back this up, right?
Oh, definitively. By 1992, Best Buy hits $1 billion in annual revenue.
$1 billion. And in stark contrast, their rival, Highland Superstores,
Filed for bankruptcy that same year.
wow,
And Circuit City, which relied so heavily on commission sales, started its long, slow decline into irrelevance. The new model was a massive, sustainable competitive advantage.
And they didn't just stop there with innovating the physical layout. The evolution continued with Concept 3 in 1994, which expanded product offerings and introduced more interactive elements.
Yeah, Concept 3 brought in the Answer Center touchscreen kiosks. This gave detailed self-service product information for both customers and staff.
And it also introduced dedicated demonstration areas.
Which is crucial for selling complex items, right? Like surround sound systems or those early video game consoles. It turned the store into like a partial showroom, a place you could actually experience the tech.
And then by 1998, with Concept 4, they really honed the design. This featured these open layouts organized intuitively by category.
And they distributed the cash registers throughout the store. They moved away from that single bottleneck at the front, which further facilitated the quick transaction model they'd pioneered with the tornado sale.
They were actively creating a truly navigable and, experiential retail space.
Then came the new millennium, and the strategy shifted again. It went from refining the store design to expanding the company's entire function through a series of strategic acquisitions.
They made a push into entertainment first. They acquired Magnolia Hi-Fi in 2000, which gave them a premium audio-video foothold. But the really risky bet was in January 2001.
The Musicland acquisition.
Acquiring Musicland Stores Corporation, the parent of Sam Goody, Suncoast Media Play.
That deal was huge, $425 million cash, plus they assumed $271 million in debt. It looked like this massive, aggressive move into physical media retail.
It seemed like they were positioning themselves to dominate CD and DVD sales, just as, Napster and file sharing were starting to bubble up.
And it failed. Fast.
So fast. They divested Musicland just 2 years later, in 2003, selling it off to Sun Capital Partners.
It just shows they were still feeling out where the market was going, and betting heavily on physical entertainment media was clearly a dead end.
But their true game changer, the acquisition that followed, was the one that kicked off the service revolution.
October 2002. They acquired the Minneapolis-based Geek Squad.
And at the time, Geek Squad was this niche, 24-hour residential computer repair service. The cars, the white shirts, the whole vibe.
And they rapidly and I think brilliantly integrated it. By 2004, Geek Squad precincts, those in-store service desks staffed by the black and white clad agents, were rolled out in every single American store.
And this fundamentally changed Best Buy's identity. They went from just being a seller of boxes to a provider of solutions, support, and services.
And that service revenue quickly became essential, especially as product margins were tightening under pressure from online competitors like Amazon.
It created a sticky customer base, didn't it? If you have your computer serviced by Best Buy, you're just far more likely to buy your next device there, and crucially, pay for an extended service plan.
Absolutely. And the pace of innovation was just relentless through the mid-2000s. 2003, you see the launch of the Reward Zone loyalty program.
Locking customers into the ecosystem with points and discounts.
Then 2004 brought the really ambitious customer centricity program.
This was a massive corporate undertaking. It was aimed at tackling the sort of impersonality of big box retail. The idea was to segment stores and train employees to focus on different customer groups rather than just, product categories.
So how did that actually work in practice? I mean, it sounds incredibly complex to manage 1,000 different stores based on shifting customer profiles.
It was complex, but it was also pretty insightful. They analyzed local demographics to define these specific ideal customer groups.
Okay.
For instance, a store in a rapidly growing suburban area might focus on Jill, the soccer mom who needs reliable, easy-to-use appliances and kid-friendly tech.
So the employees in that store were trained specifically on how to sell reliability and ease of setup rather than focusing on, raw specs.
Exactly. And conversely, a store near a major university might focus on Buzz, the tech enthusiast who buys high-end gaming rigs. The goal was to tailor the inventory and the employee expertise to the local shopper.
That's a huge shift. You're moving from a totally centralized inventory model to a localized, customized service model.
And they also tackled customer frustrations directly. In 2005, they started killing off mail-in rebates.
Which everyone hated. Mail-in rebates were universally despised by customers because they were complicated, they took months, and a lot of them were just designed to fail.
Right. You forget to send it in or you lose the receipt.
Exactly. So Best Buy was the first major retailer to get rid of them in favor of instant rebates, done via notebook computers at checkout. And they cited negative customer reaction as the reason.
Another conscious decision to build trust and simplify the transaction. It echoes that whole commission-free ethos.
And they were also being strategically forward-looking in the big technology shifts. In 2007, Best Buy became the first consumer electronics retailer to completely phase out analog televisions.
Carrying only digital products, well ahead of the 2009 FCC mandate.
I mean, that takes foresight and guts. They essentially forced their customers to adopt the new standard early. It was a risky inventory decision, but it cemented their image as the place for modern technology while their rivals were still trying to dump outdated stock.
And they became an indispensable partner for new market entrants. 2008, they secure this massive coup,
The iPhone.
becoming the first third-party retailer allowed to sell the revolutionary Apple iPhone. This immediately drove enormous foot traffic into their stores, which Apple wanted but just couldn't accommodate solely in their own limited retail footprint.
And showing their continued interest in digital content, they acquired Napster for $121 million later that same year.
Trying once more to establish a foothold in that digital media distribution space.
And finally, rounding out the decade, they launched Best Buy Mobile in 2009. They opened these standalone stores in malls and urban areas through a partnership with the Carphone warehouse.
This was a critical expansion into the high-growth mobile device sector, which needed these specialized, smaller retail formats.
So that successful but also highly volatile period of domestic innovation, it leads us directly into their major strategic failures.
Which brings us to Section 3. Global ambitions and the turnaround era, running from 2001 to the present. The company proved it could survive the retail giants at home, but could it conquer the world?
The short answer is no, not really. The early 2000s were marked by these massive, often very expensive global moves.
Starting in Canada, they acquired FutureShop Ltd. in 2001, which was already a dominant electronics retailer there.
And they kept FutureShop running as a subsidiary, while at the same time rolling out the first Canadian Best Buy branded store in Mississauga in 2002.
Then they took aim at Asia, specifically China, which everyone saw as the next great frontier for consumer spending.
So in 2006, they acquired a majority interest in Jiangsu Five Star Appliance. At the time, it was China's fourth largest appliance chain, with almost 200 stores.
And this was a sort of phased approach, right? They initially tried to adapt their model. They opened the first Best Buy branded store in Shanghai in 2007, trying to see if the American big box concept could translate directly to the Chinese consumer.
Then Europe was the next colossal bet. In 2008, Best Buy purchased 50% of the retail division of the Carphone warehouse, the major UK mobile retailer.
For an eye-watering $2.1 billion.
$2.1 billion. This was clearly intended as their springboard into the broader European market. They followed that up with their first Turkish store in 2009, and they even launched into Latin America with their first Mexican store in 2008.
So they had boots on the ground in North America, Latin America, Europe, and Asia. They were genuinely trying to become a globally dominant retailer.
But that dream of global power just dissolved. It dissolved quickly into a decade of painful international retreats and massive consolidation between 2010 and 2020.
So why did these sophisticated global expansions, backed by billions of dollars in capital, fail so spectacularly, particularly in Europe?
It was a mix of factors, but primarily competition, timing, and just local market resistance. The UK market was already saturated.
Right.
They opened 11 Best Buy branded stores in the UK in 2010, trying to transplant the exact US big box experience. They immediately ran into these heavily entrenched, well-regarded local chains, many of whom had superior supply chains and brand loyalty.
And all 11 of those stores were closed by early 2012.
That is an incredibly fast failure rate for that kind of massive capital investment.
It is, and the scale of that failure forced a complete reversal. They fully exited the European market in April 2013.
Selling their remaining 50% stake in the Carphone warehouse back to the retailer for just $775 million.
So they lost $1.3 billion on the initial investment, not even counting the operating costs.
A huge loss, and China followed a really similar pattern of rapid retrenchment. They closed all the Best Buy branded stores there by February 2011.
Merging those operations into the existing Jiangsu five-star infrastructure, which they had fully acquired in 2009. The Best Buy brand name it didn't resonate, and the model didn't fit.
And in the Americas, Mexico proved unsustainable. They closed those operations entirely in December 2020, primarily because of the severe economic effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on discretionary retail spending in that region.
And even their most successful international venture, Canada, required brutal consolidation. In 2015, they shut down the Future Shop chain entirely.
Only converting 65 of those 131 locations into Best Buy stores and closing the rest. The sources are really clear on this. Best Buy's business model is exceptionally difficult to scale and adapt outside of North America.
And all of this global turbulence came to a head at the same time as a major domestic leadership crisis around 2012.
Yeah, this was a deeply damaging period for the company's reputation. In April 2012, the CEO, Brian Dunn, he resigned amid an internal investigation.
And the focus of that investigation was personal misconduct, specifically an inappropriate relationship with a female employee.
And the crisis broadened considerably when the internal investigation alleged that the company founder, Richard Schultz, who was still serving as chairman,
Right.
had known about Dunn's inappropriate relationship and, critically, had failed to notify the board of directors.
So it's a failure of corporate governance.
A huge one. And it forced Schultz to resign his chairmanship shortly thereafter.
So you've got Best Buy facing this perfect storm, failed, expensive international expansion, the relentless pressure of Amazon price competition, and a complete destabilizing leadership vacuum. The company's future genuinely looked bleak.
And the savior arrived in September 2012 in the form of Hubert Joly.
Joly was previously the CEO of Carlson, the hospitality conglomerate, so
Right.
not a retail guy.
Not a retail guy. And he was tasked with implementing this radical, aggressive transformation strategy he called Renew Blue.
And Joly is often credited with fundamentally saving Best Buy from the retail apocalypse. He knew they couldn't beat Amazon on price or convenience alone,
No.
but he knew they could compete on trust and experience.
So his initial steps were very pragmatic. He immediately implemented price matching with online rivals, which effectively neutralized the key Amazon argument.
Right, why would I go to the store when it's cheaper online?
Yeah.
That's gone.
Gone. And he sped up delivery times for online purchases. He also slashed costs by eliminating non-essential staff, primarily corporate overhead.
But his true genius lay in leveraging the physical store, which everyone thought was a liability, and turning it into an asset. He introduced the highly successful store-within-a-store concept.
This was a revolutionary shift. Joly convinced major brands like Apple, Google, Microsoft, and Samsung to design, finance, and often staff their own dedicated premium showroom spaces inside Best Buy stores.
That sounds financially brilliant for Best Buy. I mean, they essentially reduced the risk and the expense of running the store, didn't they?
Yeah, precisely. Best Buy shifted from being solely a retailer to being this highly sophisticated landlord and broker. The tech giants were paying for the prime floor space, they were paying for the fixtures, and they were often contributing heavily to the dedicated staff training and even employee salaries within their zone.
And Best Buy retained the customer traffic, the service revenue potential from all the resulting sales, and the overall margin, all while substantially lowering their own capital expenditure on physical retail.
Joly also fundamentally reversed the previous corporate philosophy on staff. He invested heavily in employee training, giving them specific product knowledge and empowering them to act as true experts, bridging that gap between the customer and the technology.
Which is something Amazon just couldn't replicate.
Cannot replicate.
Mm.
And as part of this transformation, he formally abandoned the results-only work environment, or ROWE, in 2013, which had been in place since 2005.
The ROW environment was fascinating. It was extremely flexible, right? It allowed employees to manage their own schedules as long as they delivered results. So why did Jolie eliminate such a progressive, flexible system?
He felt it had undermined the necessary centralization and consistency that was required for the Renew Blue turnaround. He needed uniformity in staffing and service quality to support this demanding store within a store model.
He needed employees on the floor, consistently, providing expert advice.
Exactly. Flexibility was sacrificed for consistent, high-quality, in-person customer service, which was the foundation of the post-Jolie survival strategy.
Moving into more recent shifts, the streamlining continued. In 2018, they closed all 250 of the standalone Best Buy mobile stores in the U.S.,
which accounted for only about 1% of the company's revenue. So it was a clear move to eliminate low-performing, high-overhead spaces and focus that mobile business back into the revitalized main stores.
And that was also the year they unveiled a new corporate logo for the first time in nearly 3 decades, which kind of signifies that the shift was complete.
And of course, the pandemic provided this temporary, massive boost to computer and home office sales, but the underlying pressures of inflation and competition returned quickly.
Right. Early 2021, Best Buy laid off over 5,000 employees. And more cuts followed in 2022 after they dramatically cut their financial forecast.
The retreat from physical media also continues. In 2024, they announced they would phase out the sale of physical home video media DVDs and Blu-rays.
Citing the absolute dominance of streaming video-on-demand services, it's the painful lesson they learned from the failed Musicland acquisition just decades later.
And in Canada, they are continuing to adapt their physical footprint to capture smaller markets. In June 2024, they partnered with BCE Inc. to convert 167 selected locations of The Source,
which was originally Radio Shack franchises.
Right, into Best Buy Express stores.
So these new Express stores are small format, often in malls or rural markets where a full-size big box store just isn't feasible.
And crucially, they focus on 2 things: easy tech accessories and exclusive wireless services from Bell Canada and its subsidiaries. So it's effectively combining the mobile strategy with a smaller footprint.
And looking ahead to 2025, there's a huge development showing their hybrid digital future.
The marketplace.
They're planning to relaunch their online marketplace for third-party sellers by next summer, and they're partnering with Miracle, a major marketplace software provider.
This is a re-entry into a space they attempted before. They operated a marketplace between 2011 and 2016. The Miracle partnership suggests a much more sophisticated, scalable approach this time around.
It seems like they're aiming to compete directly with Amazon and Walmart by becoming a digital host for other retailers and electronics providers, leveraging their brand trust and extensive logistics network.
So now that we've tracked all these strategic pivots, I think we should look closer at the operational depth that supports this modern strategy. Let's focus on their services and their house brands in Section 4, the Best Buy ecosystem.
At its core, the business is the same, selling everything from consumer electronics, software, phones, to large home appliances. But that key operating condition, the non-commissioned sales environment, is so crucial. It supports the premium experience they're trying to sell.
And central to that premium experience and their service revenue is the Geek Squad. It's so much more than just fixing broken screens. It offers comprehensive computer repair, warranty service, accidental damage plans.
It's the engine of recurring revenue. It ensures the customer comes back after that initial sale.
And that's where the abandoned corporate culture of ROWE comes back into play. The results-only work environment was highly innovative when they implemented it in 2005. The underlying philosophy was radical freedom and radical accountability.
Right. Employees determined where, when, and how they did their work as long as they met their performance goals. It sounds like a dream job for a remote worker, but why did it ultimately clash with the retail environment?
Because Jolie needed visible, consistent, standardized service in the store to support those high-end showrooms. When you walk into the Apple or Samsung section, you expect an expert to be physically present to guide you through a demonstration.
Not an empty floor because the employees decided to work from home that day.
Exactly. ROW favored individual flexibility, whereas Renew Blue demanded unified, in-store customer support. Jolie's move showed that for Best Buy, The physical, service-driven experience had become non-negotiable for survival.
And moving beyond service, Best Buy has this really deeply developed strategy for using internal brands or house brands to capture different price points and secure greater profit margins. Our sources list 8 distinct brands they use.
And this is a highly sophisticated approach to inventory management. It allows them to price match external competitors with their Dynex and Insignia brands while maintaining high margins on premium products that compete directly with established third-party accessories.
So let's break down the competitive niche of the primary brands. Who is Dynex targeting?
Dynex is strictly the discount and general purpose line. So think essential, low-cost electronics like basic cables, entry-level computer gear, and low-end HD TVs.
This is how Best Buy ensures they have a product for the extremely price-sensitive shopper. They can match the price point of a generic Amazon cable, but with a higher store-controlled margin.
Exactly. And then you have Insignia, which seems to cover a broader range.
Right. Insignia is the general mid-tier workhorse brand. It covers more substantial items. HDTVs, a range of small appliances like mini refrigerators, and basic electronic equipment. It acts as the reliable, moderately priced alternative to the major name brands.
And for accessories and storage, you have Init and Modal.
Init focuses on function over flash SO, media storage solutions, equipment bags, basic chargers. Modal, by contrast, targets the style-conscious customer. It focuses on accessories like sleek Bluetooth speakers, phone cases, and mobile accessories that prioritize aesthetics and current trends.
And then you move up the scale to their high-end private label offerings.
That would be Platinum and the Rocketfish lines. Platinum is designated as their highest quality in-house brand. They use it for premium cables, high-end digital imaging equipment, and accessories designed to compete head-to-head with expensive third-party brands like Belkin or Bose.
And the margin capture on a Platinum HDMI cable versus a name brand alternative is substantial for them.
Oh, absolutely. And Rocketfish Mobile handle the specialized accessories, particularly installation gear like complex home theater mounting kits or specialized mobile accessories like car chargers.
The genius of this ecosystem is clear. They have an internal offering for every single price point, guaranteeing a sale and maximizing their margin regardless of whether the customer is browsing for a cheap cable or a premium accessory.
And this whole strategy of catering to all customers, it culminates in their specialized, dedicated in-store concepts. The ultimate extension of the store within a store concept aimed right at the affluent customer.
You're talking about the Magnolia and Pacific sales concepts, which are often semi-separate departments within the main store.
Right. This is their moat against Amazon. They sell complexity, consultation, and installation.
So the Magnolia Design Center, it focuses entirely on custom design and installation of complex, high-end home theater setups. This requires an in-home visit, specialized knowledge, deep expertise, things that are impossible to buy online.
It's a consultative sales model. It leverages the trust that was established by that commission-free environment.
Exactly. Then you have the Magnolia Home Theater section, which stocks the really high-end audiovisual equipment, expensive 4K and 3D TVs, projectors, premium speaker systems that require demonstration and expert advice before you buy.
And finally, Pacific Sales focuses solely on high-end appliances, premium washing machines, dryers, refrigerators. It leverages the fact that customers often need to feel, see, and compare these massive long-term investments in person.
These concepts attract customers who are seeking specialized, non-transactional advice, which validates the entire Renewably strategy.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Best Buy has survived by being relentlessly adaptive, shifting from a product retailer to a service and experience broker. But that journey has not been without significant ethical flashpoints and major controversies.
And these are just as integral to their corporate identity as the Geek Squad itself. So let's examine these in Section 5.
The initial controversies often revolved around that tension between their non-commission philosophy and the pressure to sell high-margin extras. Take the 2000 lawsuit regarding sales tactics and warranties.
Right. 2 consumers in Florida sued, alleging widespread fraudulent business practices related to extended warranties. The core of their complaint was that employees were misrepresenting or downplaying the coverage provided by manufacturer warranties, specifically to push the store's own product service replacement plan.
The suit characterized this as a corporate-wide scheme to institute high-pressure sales techniques. So even in a non-commission environment, management was clearly incentivizing staff to sell these high-margin service contracts.
And Best Buy settled that case for $200,000, though they admitted no wrongdoing. It just shows that tension point never fully went away.
And pricing transparency became another legal issue as the digital age dawned. In 2007, the Connecticut Attorney General investigated their use of in-store website kiosks.
This was a reflection of the early struggles of omnichannel retail. Customers complained that they accessed what looked like the Best Buy website on these kiosks, but the devices were set up to display only the potentially higher in-store prices.
And not the sometimes lower online prices.
Right. It created confusion and distrust. It was essentially pitting the physical store against the online channel. The issue was only resolved after Best Buy agreed to add a very clear banner to the kiosks, clarifying that price difference.
It just shows how difficult it was to navigate the price transparency that the internet forced upon all physical retailers.
Furthermore, in 2014, Best Buy settled a class action lawsuit for $4.5 million for making unsolicited phone calls, a violation of the Telephone Consumer Protection Act.
And they were fined $280,000 by the FCC in 2008 for failing to adequately notify customers that the analog televisions they were selling would become useless for over-the-air broadcasts after the 2009 digital transition. Another failure in providing complete, transparent information.
We also need to look at environmental responsibility, where they have faced both historical critique and, to be fair, subsequent proactive effort. In 2007, they were cited in a Greenpeace report.
And that report alleged that Best Buy was sourcing raw materials, particularly for wood components in certain products, from logging companies that were contributing to unethical deforestation of the Canadian taiga. This put them directly in the spotlight regarding their supply chain ethics.
And to their credit, their response was substantive. They launched the Greener Together initiative, which focused corporate resources on increasing product energy efficiency, reducing consumer waste through recyclable packaging, and ensuring proper disposal guidelines for things like batteries and ink cartridges.
And this commitment has been measurable. They introduced a broad recycling program in 2009 for a nominal fee, which has since collected nearly £500 million of electronics and e-waste.
With the ambition of reaching £1 billion.
Right. And they were also named to the EPA Top 50 list in 2011 for their efforts in purchasing green power, clocking in nearly 119 million kilowatt hours. This demonstrated a serious corporate effort to shift their environmental impact profile.
Now, this raises an important question about the limits of customer trust, particularly when we talk about the service arm, the Geek Squad, which is so central to their current business. This area has produced the most legally and ethically complex controversies.
Absolutely. The collaboration between the FBI and the Geek Squad is a shocking detail buried in the source material that just demands a closer look.
The FBI actively recruited Geek Squad employees, paying them to act as covert informants, their job, to flag potential child pornography found on customer computers that were brought in for repair.
So this arrangement essentially deputized private tech repair staff to conduct surveillance on behalf of federal law enforcement. This raises massive constitutional and privacy implications. When you drop your laptop off for a simple fan repair, are you subjecting your entire digital life to federal scrutiny?
And we have a specific high-profile case anecdote where a customer was indicted after an employee flagged their computer. However, the government ultimately dropped the case.
Why?
The judge threw out nearly all the evidence after finding that an FBI agent had made false and misleading statements while securing a search warrant for the customer's home. The legal system recognized the dangerous lack of transparency and the ethical overreach in the evidence gathering.
That incident perfectly illustrates the murky legal and ethical tightrope walk that Best Buy is performing by integrating service and surveillance, even if it's for a purportedly noble cause.
And the privacy concerns surrounding technicians haven't gone away. In 2023, CBC News released a marketplace investigation finding that Best Buy technicians were viewing private customer files, including intimate photos, on devices brought in for service.
Then the investigation detailed a catastrophic breach of trust. One technician was actually caught copying these private photos onto a USB drive.
This is a profound liability. The service model requires customers to hand over the keys to their most sensitive personal data, and when that trust is broken, it damages the very foundation of the Geek Squad value proposition.
Finally, we have to mention the recent social and political pressures Best Buy has navigated. It really proves that even a retailer focused on electronics cannot escape these highly charged debates.
Right. In March 2024, the company was caught in a crossfire related to its corporate social responsibility efforts.
Following pressure and threats from conservative advocacy groups, often related to shareholder action targeting environmental, social, and governance or ESG initiatives, Best Buy made a highly scrutinized decision regarding their internal giving.
They agreed to block donations made by their employee resource groups to 8 specific LGBT organizations. And this decision was explicitly linked to the conservative group's opposition to those organizations' support for gender-affirming care for trans minors.
And the immediate result was swift and public criticism from major advocacy groups like GLA and the Human Rights Campaign.
It's a painful example of how modern American corporations are forced to react to external political pressure, often navigating complex social issues that have nothing to do with selling a television. They're forced to change internal corporate policy in response to threats of activism or shareholder dissent.
So if we connect this entire narrative arc to the bigger picture, the story of Best Buy is not one of steady success. It's one of repeated, desperate, and often brilliant transformation. They went from the niche Sound of Music to surviving the retail apocalypse by becoming a hybrid retailer.
Physical showrooms, a rapidly expanding online marketplace, and extensive service offerings. Their very survival hinged on those radical internal changes.
The early elimination of commission sales to build customer trust, the massive, profitable bet on services through the Geek Squad, and the Jolie-led strategy of the store within a store,
which effectively turned them into subsidized, high-traffic showrooms for their major tech partners.
What's truly fascinating, and what should stick with you, is the paradox that emerged from their triumph. While the service arm, the Geek Squad, saved the business model, it introduced a whole new set of complex ethical and security liabilities.
Right. The headlines are no longer about price wars with Circuit City. They're about privacy violations, surveillance, and technician misconduct.
The company traded the simple business risk of inventory management for the far more complex risk of data and trust management.
Indeed. The next evolution of Best Buy may rely less on what they sell and more on how transparently and ethically they handle the vast amounts of sensitive customer data and trust that comes with their repair and service business. That shift from simply moving boxes to guaranteeing digital safety is the ultimate modern retail challenge for them.
Something for you to mull or explore on your own as you track their digital marketplace relaunch and the next chapter of the Geek Squad.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.